Hi, I'm Dr. Ribbens, and I'm here to share with you about study abroad in the College of Business. I'll be sharing a series of slides with you and talking a little bit about some of the opportunities we have and how to go about getting involved in study abroad. But I wanted to start by saying hello and welcome to getting involved in Families Weekend, even if we have to do it a bit virtually. So at the end of this slideshow, I'll be here live to answer your questions, but I wanted to go through this a little bit more carefully and get you up to speed on some of the things that go on in the College of Business with study abroad. And I wanted to start by telling you that I'm going to have pictures throughout this entire presentation, and they are from students who are or have been studying abroad. We don't have anybody abroad right at the moment, but some of these are very recent from last spring or last fall. So enjoy the beautiful pictures, for example, the ones Shelby submitted as we go through our presentation today. So I want to start out by giving you some Illinois information and thinking about why it's so important for Illinois students to study abroad. And if you notice Illinois on this map, we are one of the biggest states in terms of jobs tied to international trade. In fact, the Department of Labor estimates that somewhere between 25 and 30% of all jobs in the United States are directly connected to imports and exports. That's only a direct connection. Many, many more jobs are tied to global business in a variety of ways. Usually when we do family weekend, I play a little game with the parents and have them stand up or sit down when I talk about different parts of international business and global trade. And usually we find out that just about every parent in the room has some kind of a connection to international business and global trade through their jobs. So it's important for Illinois students. Specifically, a few international Illinois facts. International trade supported almost 1.5 million Illinois jobs in 2018. Without that global trade, those jobs would go away. That's directly tied, jobs that are directly tied. Illinois exporters include over 23,000 different companies, and they go to 223 different countries. About 90% of those companies are small or medium companies. So while we tend to think of the Caterpillars and the ADMs and the big companies, the vast majority of export and import jobs in the state of Illinois are actually small and medium companies that have global niches. In 2017, exports were valued at $65.2 billion just from Illinois. And 82% it was some sort of manufacturer's goods. Now it's important to realize, so far we've talked about Illinois import and export jobs, but it's also important to understand that a lot of internationally based firms have employees here in Illinois. In fact, almost 325,000 employees. So that's another big chunk of jobs where understanding something about the global perspective becomes very important. When that's where your company is based, having that global perspective can be really, really helpful. And finally, 634 Illinois firms have employees abroad as well. In fact, it's about almost 680,000 jobs that are based elsewhere in the world, but they're actually employees of Illinois firms. So that leads us to the students in the group. Whether you want to work in Illinois or abroad, how are you preparing yourself to do business in the global world of today? What are you doing to learn cultural skills, language skills, develop a global mindset, or have the confidence to live and work in totally different settings? Or maybe you'll live here in Illinois, but you will travel to new places periodically for your job. What kinds of things are you doing in college to help you be ready for the challenges you may face in that job in your future? So I wanted to touch on what a global mindset is, because that might not be a term you've thought about. It's basically a set of individual attributes to enable and facilitate global leadership. In other words, you want to be able to influence others that are unlike you and the perspectives that may be different from yours. Another way to think about it is the simplicity, the ability to avoid the simplicity of assuming all cultures are the same, but also not being paralyzed by differences. So if you want to think about it, it's the ability to see yourself as American and German, or American and Polish, or American and Mexican at the same time, and being able to recognize their differences, but they connect together. So here's another set of pictures from the last couple semesters from Jessica and Ethan as they explored and wanted to share with others some of the adventures they had during their study abroad. So it's important to think about, how do companies think about study abroad? And this is from an article published in 2012. And they interviewed some people about what they thought. And they talk about, I've highlighted a few things here, exposure to different cultures, thought processes, and ways of doing business adds to a student's knowledge base and experience. But it's important to recognize not all study abroads are the same. Different experiences bring you different advantages. So companies pay a lot of attention to how you describe your time abroad and what you feel you gain from the experience. So companies are especially impressed when candidates have gone to a study abroad program alone instead of with a group of friends, or they've done something innovative or different that's not the typical. It's important to note here as well that we've been finding a lot of our students who have studied abroad are going to companies and doing jobs that superficially don't sound like they would require study abroad. But the companies are preferring to choose people who studied abroad because of some of the attributes that they bring back from that experience. So this is from a study of people who studied abroad. And a couple important things is that study abroad helps you better understand yourself and your own cultural values. Also, you gain skills, skills that can sometimes be thought of as those soft skills, like confidence or maturity or poise. Some of those things are heavily influenced by a study abroad experience. 95% of the people who studied abroad believed it had a lasting impact on their worldview. And 89% that said that it helped them better tolerate ambiguity. They were better dealing with uncertain situations after they had been abroad. And these are older, this is an older study, but in this study by a company that does study abroad, they compared people who studied abroad to college graduates in the same kinds of positions. And on average, the people who studied abroad earned about $6,000 more a year as in their starting salary than the people who did not. So these are not just ISU students. This is a big, broad sample from across the United States. So the top 4 employee traits that companies look for that are influenced by study abroad are learning more about the knowledge of your field, because you're learning it at another school with another perspective, and it can broaden and deepen the kinds of thinking you have about even your technical topic of study. Your managerial ability, because you're usually doing teamwork and working with people different than yourself. Your strategic understanding is better when you've thought about things from international perspectives. And of course, you've gained those cross-cultural skills that are very important. So over 90% of employers believe that students who studied abroad are likely to possess very highly desirable skills. So who studies abroad? Again, this is important for you just to know. And that is 1 in 10 US undergrad studies abroad in general. So it's a way to make yourself distinctive. By studying abroad, you become one of that top group who employers will be looking for and look to have gone and done something different. How long do most students from the US study abroad? About 63% of them study for 8 weeks or less and do some sort of short-term or summer program. About a third of them do 1 semester, and then only about 3% of them do an entire academic year. And I will shortly be talking about the 2 programs we have that last an entire academic year and actually have some other additional benefits. So we offer a full spectrum of study abroad programs, everything from summer and break programs, semester programs, to full year academic programs, and we also have international internships. So we have quite a number of exchange programs that are directly related to the College of Business, and these are very important because these are exchanges between business school to business school. So when you go to some of these places, you will be studying in very similar business situations as you would be here. PhD trained faculty, you're not going to schools that have a lower quality. We very carefully look at these schools and develop relationships with them so that we know you are getting a quality experience. Doesn't mean you might not have one class here or there that's not the same as here, but sometimes it's that difference and a different perspective that really gives you the extra thing, extra insights. So we have some programs during the summer, we have programs during the semester, and in fact, it's important to understand that through ISU, there are over 90 different programs and they're going to 47 countries. On top of that, we have relationships with affiliate companies that have even more countries and even more opportunities, so that you can pretty much go anywhere in the world you really want to. But these are the business school ones, and so these are the most easily accessible ones to our business students. So how do you figure out where to study abroad? Because it sounds pretty exciting, but kind of scary to think about. How do I figure it out? And our study abroad program here at ISU has a great website. I have the website listed on this slide, and you can just search study abroad at ISU and you will get to that same site. And you can click on their destinations list and it will help you explore programs in a couple of different ways. You can look at programs by country. So look through the countries and click on some countries that are interesting to you. And that you can also sort them by term and say, I really want to go in summer, or I really want to go in spring, or I really want to go on a short-term program. So their website is very flexible and provides a lot of support to help you explore and think through the different options. But how do you make the choices? The really big important thing is, what are your goals for studying abroad? What do you want to accomplish with it? And then when do you want to do it, and what's your budget for doing it? And we'll talk more about budget in just a second. But the most common time for business students really does vary based on goals. If you're building language skills, and let's say you studied Spanish in high school and you want to continue that and develop your Spanish more completely in college, you're more likely to do that in your sophomore year, when you've come out of high school, gone right into Spanish here, and then want to continue it with a foreign semester. If you're looking at business study, which is the most common thing that we encourage business students to do, and honestly, it's probably the one companies get most excited about when they know that you've studied advertising or you've studied finance in another part of the world. They're very excited about that sort of perspective. That's best done your junior year or into your first semester of your senior year. For a lot of practical reasons, we don't encourage you going abroad your very last semester here. It's just a little bit chaotic to get things sent back in time for graduation and all of that. So it's best done before you get to that point. So I want to talk a little bit about budgets and what some things are that can be helpful to you as we explore the budgets. The first thing is that understanding the word exchanges. Exchanges save students money because literally we send our student from ISU abroad and they send us one of their students back. The really, really neat thing is that you pay only 2 credits of ISU tuition for up to a semester's worth of courses. In other words, if you went abroad for fall 2021 to an ISU exchange, you would pay for 2 credits and you would essentially be getting a scholarship for up to 13 free credits. I want to really quickly show you these comparison pages because they will show you how economical it can be to study abroad at ISU. So here's a glance of what some of the semester abroad programs look like in comparison to being right here at ISU. So if you'll notice in the middle of this picture, there are 2 ISU comparison budgets. One is if you're living on campus and one is living off campus in an apartment. So these are your 2 comparison numbers as to what the costs would be for the same semester as compared to the cost of going to some of these different programs. So if you notice for an entire semester abroad, instead of spending around $15,000 at ISU with an exchange and the savings and tuition, you could spend a semester in Mexico for about $6,000 and be learning at one of the top universities in Mexico. And you'll notice there are quite a few on this list under $11,000 in a variety of places. There are some that are closer to our particular cost. In fact, the semester in Spain is fairly similar. And then there are some locations that are more expensive. So depending upon what you want to study and where you want to go, the cost will vary a lot. Now you might notice that Australia, which has, this wonderful, great image of a great place to go and spend a semester, it tends to be more expensive. One of the reasons is we don't have as many exchange opportunities there. The universities there know everybody wants to go there. So they tend to choose to stay a little bit more expensive versus some of the other programs that are much more similar to what you would find at ISU. So back to our slides, we can find those budgets. They're on the Study Abroad website. These links are under the budget tab. There's also a similar comparison one for summer, which does the same sort of comparison of taking a summer worth of classes here at ISU, as well as taking them at our partner schools abroad. And if you have questions as I'm going through this, please, you can jot them in chat and I'll answer them when I finish this presentation, or you can email me and I'll have my information toward the end of the slides. So again, just talking about Australia, we have Kasha down here who spent last spring in Australia, and we have Joe who spent his time in Europe, giving you a few more glimpses of this study abroad life. So I want to talk through the different timing and the different opportunities. So we have 2 full academic year programs. The first one is from Universitat Paderborn in Germany, and the second one is from ICN in France. And in both cases, this is an opportunity to earn 2 bachelor's degrees in 4 years. One from ISU and one from the international school. To make these work, basically, it's potentially possible to do them with other majors, but they're designed for international business majors to spend their entire junior year abroad. So if they're of interest to you, please come talk to me about it and we can look at the options that you have for doing it. But for IB majors, this is a great opportunity because businesses are very excited to talk to students who spent an entire year living in Europe. One important note is that to get that second degree, the student must meet all of Paderborn or ICN's requirements as well. So that means maintaining the GPA and completing any other requirements that they set. So for example, with Paderborn, it means that there are a couple of extra classes that have to be fit in that you wouldn't normally take if you were an ISU major in IB, but to get Paderborn's international business major, they require an extra couple of classes. In some cases, it requires you to do a couple of summer classes to be ready to go. It's mostly just to keep your sequence going. And it does depend upon how many credits you may have brought from high school or what you've done during the first summer between your freshman and sophomore year. Some cases, students need nothing. In some cases, students need 1 or maybe 2 classes to be up to speed to leave for these European programs. Why is it so cool? First of all, you are getting to immerse yourself in another culture for essentially an entire year. And this really expands your abilities, your career opportunities, and helps you develop confidence living in another setting for the long haul. One of the things we always like to have students think about is you will be missing things that happen at ISU, but there's an entirely new set of opportunities going on at the other school you will get to take advantage of. So this fear of missing out problem, it's a little scary to think about it, but the students who go have no regrets. They have loved the opportunity and it's really grown them. And in some cases, having the 2 bachelor's degrees has actually, companies have treated a couple of those students like master's level job applicants, giving them higher salaries and more responsible positions because they've had this longer term experience in a different country. It is important to recognize that the courses that you would be taking are available in English. You don't have to be fluent in either German or French. There are opportunities to take German or French during these programs, but they are not required other than at Paderborn, 1 German language and culture course is a requirement. But you don't have, that doesn't have to be your main language. So I've had students do the Paderborn program and get their second degree from there. Their language for their IB major was Chinese. They learned a bit of German while they were there as well. So we have anywhere between 2 to 6 students doing international year abroads, depending on the year each year. But these are some great opportunities, and these are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about as a sophomore so that you're ready to go. Second kind of thing I want to talk about is short-term programs. We have had a number of different short-term programs that COB students have been involved in. I have several of the example titles of those programs up here. Some of these are led by College of Business faculty. A few of them are led by other faculty with expertise in the area. So for example, the fashion industry one is led by someone from fashion merchandising, but I've had several business students who had an interest in fashion or cosmetics go on that tour and absolutely have a fabulous time. It's also important to know that there are a lot of short-term programs that might meet general ed requirements or might be in an area of interest or a hobby, and those can be fabulous experiences as well. It is important to recognize that the cost of travel goes up for short-term programs because you are flying somewhere, but you're only there for 1 to 2 weeks. And so in some cases, that does make the program overall a bit more expensive than flying somewhere to be for an entire year. These programs are offered during winter break, spring break, or usually right after the semester ends in May. Those are the most common times to look at short-term programs. When should students go during the summer? Most of the time we think about summer programs after their junior year, depending upon how many credits you have. Some people are eligible after their sophomore year. Some students also do them after their senior year, so they actually walk in May and their graduation is dated August, and they take that summer to do a study abroad. We've had a lot of them who already have job offers. They talk to their company and their company is thrilled to have them go and get this kind of experience, and they are very willing to wait for their start date for a month or two to help them get this broadening experience. Generally in summer, you're earning 6 credits. Sometimes it's 6 credits of business electives or even required courses. Sometimes it's 3 of an elective and 3 toward a general ed or a university elective. So there's some variety depending on where you choose to go. When to go for a semester? Generally earlier is easier, as I mentioned, but we do prefer that some business classes are in. So most commonly COB students go their junior year. And again, those COB programs are cheapest because of the exchange agreements, and we have the most track record for course articulation because in many cases, those schools share similar accreditations and similar goals as we do. It is sometimes important to realize that you can take classes that we don't offer here and bring them back, and they can enrich your experience and help you differentiate yourself from your peers as well. So we have a couple of newer exchanges. The first one I wanted to touch on is Surrey Business School. It's in Guildford. It's about an hour outside of London. What's cool about Surrey, besides the fact that it's an absolutely beautiful campus, is that about 37% of their student body is from outside the UK. So it's an extremely global, diverse set of students to work with. And while I was there on the campus doing the site visit, setting this up, I met an American student who was attending school there. And I've kept in touch with him, and he graduated from Surrey and has a job with Rolls-Royce. Here are a couple of pictures from Troy and Preet. Troy spent his study abroad in Madrid, and Preet went to our other new program, which I will share with you now, and it is our new program with the University of Seoul. So it's a public university located right in Seoul. It's one of the top universities in Korea, and it offers both business and Korean-focused electives in English. So some of the Korean-focused electives would be Korea in Korea's place of leadership in the world, or Korean business practices, some Korean culture courses, etc. So there's some pretty cool things. And shown in the previous slide, she had an absolutely fabulous experience, even though she was our guinea pig and the first one to go to a new school. I did want to talk as well a little bit about international internships. Sometimes students think this is just for IB majors, but any COB major can do an international internship. We've had insurance, finance, accounting, and marketing do international internships through the Varner International Business Center. Generally, you have to be upper end of junior into senior status. In some cases, you can do an international internship within a semester study abroad. So some of our partner schools offer internships regularly, and you could go for a fall or a spring and take 3 classes and do an internship, for example, or 4 classes and do an internship. But many students do their international internship during the summer. So how would you go about arranging it? We have 3 different routes. First of all, as I mentioned, some of our partner schools have internship options. Most notably, we have partners in Mexico, Cyprus, and Italy that we have had great experiences with for internships. The students have had some great opportunities. We also have some affiliated contacts. So some of the companies that do study abroad focus on internships. And so there are some of those organizations. We also have some organizations that we work with that just do internships. So we've just started working with one in Colombia. We've sent 3 students to internships in Argentina. And we've had 3 students do internships in China through an affiliated contact. The last way is through your own contact. Sometimes some of you might have met and made friends with an international student who was here going to your high school, or you met through some other source, or you might have family members who are living abroad or from abroad, and they may have connections. You certainly can go through and find those kinds of situations, and I can work with you to help you arrange to get credit for a work experience in those settings as well. One of our more interesting international internship settings is in Panama. And the pictures on this page are 2 of our recent interns in Panama. The first one on the top here, we had a faculty member going to Panama to teach a course down there. And while he was there, he got to go to a soccer game and meet one of our students who was interning working for the soccer club. His summer internship was doing event planning and marketing for the soccer club, which was really exciting and cool for him. In the one below that, you might notice it says Papa John's Panama Spider-Man Far From Home. That movie came out in Latin America in summer of 2018. And while it came out, we had a student doing movie marketing for 20th Century Fox in Panama. And in preparation for the event surrounding the Spider-Man movie coming out, they had ordered a Spider-Man costume, and guess who that costume fit? It fit our student. So literally the Spider-Man on the table in this picture is an ISU student who spent his summer planning movie marketing, but also playing Spider-Man at a variety of events around Panama City, Panama. One of the cool things about international internships is they count for that subsidy for going abroad. So you pay for 2 credits, but you get 3 credits for your internships. You must do both the internship paperwork as well as study abroad paperwork. And if you're looking at doing one, regardless of your major, please get in touch with me. I can work with each department so that they can count as an internship within your main department, even when you're doing them abroad. And we've had that work in every department to this point. So I wanted to highlight 2 particularly cool internships recently. We've actually had 3 different interns now take this job. But we have had an internship at the U.S. Consulate in Sydney, Australia. Emma was our pioneer. She went in 2016. And she actually got to meet Joe Biden while she was there. She worked on his visit to Australia. And we've had 2 more interns since then work in this situation. And it's a really great opportunity because you get to work with businesses who are working abroad, whether it's American businesses going to Australia or Australian businesses looking to come to the US. And it gives a really great perspective. My second example of an internship is this young man in the white shirt is Jeremy Tang. And he did an internship that was based in Hong Kong. But I put Hong Kong plus for a very specific reason, because he was working with a company that distributes American products around the world. So they're not the company that makes the products, but they work as a distributor. And so during his internship, this actually is a picture of him at a trade fair, and he got to attend trade fairs in Germany, France, and Vietnam, as well as traveling around China and Hong Kong, meeting with potential distributors as well. So there's some really cool opportunities to do internships abroad. And Jeremy really developed both his language skills and his sales skills by doing trade fairs and working for this company. So what are some of the common questions that we hear from students that might be on your mind? The first one is language. Classes are always available in English unless you're there to study a particular language. So if you're going to Spain to study Spanish, you will have the opportunity to study Spanish. But if you're taking business classes or general ed classes, they will always be available to you in English. As I mentioned, costs. We care about students making a cost budget decision that's right for them. And so we set up a lot of comparison budgets and put them on the Study Abroad website. The costs really depend on the program you've chosen, your extra travel you do around that choice. So if you're going and pretty much staying in one place, it's going to be very different from if you go and travel all over Europe. And then your personal living choices like food, and if you're going to buy new clothing or things like that. We also have, always have questions about safety. We require that our students register with the State Department when they're traveling abroad. And the Study Abroad office monitors State Department warnings. We also do provide orientation for our students before they leave, both here and then when they arrive on site. The school that is hosting them also provides an orientation, and there are always people who can help them. I always have parents who are concerned about what happens if my child gets sick. And I can tell you that it happens, but it happens rarely. I had one unfortunate semester when I had 3 different people in 3 different countries who became ill in rapid succession. One had a motorcycle accident, one had appendicitis, and one slipped and fell into a canal. And in all cases, the people at their host university took very good care of them, made sure they got the health services that they needed to be healthy, whether it was surgery or overnight in a hospital to make sure things were fine or whatever. So the host schools are very good at providing both safety warnings if something comes up that the students need to be aware of, as well as providing that health backup if there is some sort of a health issue. The last thing I wanted to touch on this slide is that it is possible to go multiple times. You can go for up to 2 semesters and a summer, and I have had students do that. Some of them have gone to related places. So I've had students go, for example, to Spain and then to Mexico and then do an internship in Manama. Sometimes I have students go to very different places to get a variety of global experiences. So I've had a student go to a semester in Hong Kong, and then she did a semester in the Netherlands. And she ended up loving the Netherlands so much that she came home, finished ISU, and then did a graduate degree in the Netherlands and is now working at a company there. So we've gotten to our last slide with our pictures of the Surrey Business School. And I wanted to just make sure you know how to proceed if you have questions or where to get answers. First thing is the study abroad site is very well organized. It has a lot of information, everything from which courses can come back from which schools, to costs, to what sorts of things are available. You can meet with a study abroad advisor. Carla is the study abroad advisor who does most of the business programs. It's also a really good idea to meet with your academic advisor. They usually have great insights about when you can fit things in and how you might be able to move things along. And last of all, you can always contact me at covstudyabroad@ilstu.edu. That's sort of a general place that you can email questions about study abroad. And if I don't have answers, we direct you to the person who does, or find you an answer. So thank you for your attention. And at this point, we will go back to the live Zoom and answer any questions that may have come up.